So we are going to do something special with you. We are going to do an entire activity pin. So this is going to come from the Webelos and Arrow of Light activity pin. We are going to do Into the Woods. Into the Woods has 7 requirements. I'm going to show you how to do and give you the information for 6 of those. The 7th one I'll talk about a little bit, but you're going to have to do that one on your own if you want to do it. But it's an optional one. You don't have to do that one. So we're going to jump right into requirement number 1. Requirement number 1 says, tell what are the 2 basic kinds of trees and what are the parts of a tree. So, Paul, what are the 2 basic kinds of a tree?
There's deciduous or broadleaf trees and conifer trees, needle trees.
Okay, so you have deciduous and conifers, broadleaf versus needle trees. We're going to look at some of those specifically in a future requirement. Now, the other part of requirement number 1 is what are the basic parts of a tree. So, Paul, what are the basic parts of the tree?
There's the roots, the trunk, the leaves / needles, the branches.
Make sure you talk it. Alright. So you also have the wood, the bark. Now if we look at some of the internal parts of a tree, so you've got the core wood here, and this is all dead cells here. This is just hard. The living part of the tree is the outer ring of the tree and the inner and outer bark. This is really the living part of the tree is. Trees grow out and they grow up. So in that living layer of the tree, there's also a couple of very special types of cells. You have the xylem and the phloem, which that's what transports the sugars down from the leaves that the trees make from photosynthesis, and what transports the water up from the roots. If you want to look at some more specific pictures of the xylem and phloem, you can jump on Google and search for those, and you can find all kinds of microscope pictures of those and diagrams and whatnot. So those are the basic parts of a tree. All right. Requirement number 2 is to identify 4 types of trees in your area. Tell whether or not they are native to your area or not, and how humans and wildlife use those types of trees. So we're going to take a quick 3-minute walk. I'm going to show you more than 4 types of trees, but just a few more. So we're going to start off right here. This is eastern white hemlock. Right? It's a conifer, a needle tree. How you can identify this, you have short, flat needles, and on the bottom of the needles you can see 2 thin white stripes. Hopefully you can see that in there. So that's the eastern white hemlock. We're not quite as far along enough yet. When it grows a little bit more later in the spring, they're going to be bright green new growth on the ends. You can actually chew those. They taste kind of like blueberry / lemony. You can actually make a tea with them. Human use for this, paper pulp, wildlife use, shelter. It is common for the area. It's a shade tree. You get lots of shade underneath it. So we're going to keep walking this way. Right. This tree right here is a maple tree. It's spring. The leaves are just starting to come out, so it's hard to tell what exactly type of tree it is. But what you can do is look down. You still have some of those leaves that have fallen from previous summer. So here's one of the leaves from this tree from last year. So this is a type of maple leaf. Everybody's pretty familiar with maple leaves. This is a red maple, and how you can tell that, if you look at that spot right in between the 2 lobes of the leaf, it forms a V. All right, and that tells you it's a red maple. I'll show you what sugar maples look like in a second. So red maples, for human use, furniture, flooring, cabinetry, stuff like that. It's a good hardwood. Wildlife use, it is food and shelter. You've got the helicopters that come off of the maples. And we have a sugar maple just over there. very similar, but the leaves, how you can tell the sugar maple from the red maple is, if you look between the lobes, it has a U-shaped area in between those lobes. So that's how you can tell the sugar maple. So again, both of those are native to our area. So this tree right here is an oak. So oak leaves, yeah, this one's kind of broken up a little bit. This one's a little bit better shaped. So this is from a white oak. And all these leaves you can find, you can look them up online. Your Cub Scout book has a few diagrams of different leaves. So oaks, again, another hardwood used for cabinetry, flooring, stuff like that, fine furniture. Wildlife use, food primarily. Oaks make acorns like this, and there's all kinds of animals that love to eat those acorns. Squirrels, chipmunks, turkeys, deer, bear.
Blue jays.
I don't think blue jays eat acorns.
They do put them in the dirt.
All right, here's one of our most common trees in this area. This is a white pine. White pine is native. It is used by humans in the construction industry a lot. We make a lot of our homes, the frames of our homes, out of the white pine. How you can tell the white pine? All of the needles come in a cluster, and the white pine has 5 needles in the cluster. Animals use this a lot for food. You got the pine cones. Squirrels, chipmunks, and other types of animals like that like to eat the pine cones. So they're good. One of the neat things about a pine, you can tell the age of a pine. You can actually see the branches come in layers, and it gets a new layer every year. So you can count the layers, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So this tree is 21 years old. And this one over here, I don't have any leaves that I can grab, but you can tell, this is one of the ones you can tell just from the bark. This is the white birch. So you can see it's white. It's a birch. White birch is good for wildlife. It has a type of seed called a catkin, and there are some types of birds that basically during certain seasons they only eat the catkins of the birches. Human use, not a huge lot of use for this. The white birch is not a very strong tree, so it's not good for construction. But it is our state tree. It's a very pretty looking tree. So that is the white birch.
And the white birch's bark is a great fire starter.
That is true. White birch bark is a good fire starter. And the one thing I'm going to caution you on that, though, is never take the bark off a standing tree. Always look for a tree that's already dead and fallen and take the bark off of that. The bark of a tree is kind of like your skin. It protects it from infection and diseases and insects and stuff like that. So we want to leave the bark on the tree. All right, so that is a nice handful of trees and how to identify them. And that should help you complete your requirement number 2. All right, requirement 3 is to identify 4 plants that grow in your area. So plants, but not trees. So I'm going to show you 4 types of plants, but there's hundreds of types of plants out there. So get out there, get out into the nature, and find some plants and see if you can identify them. Again, there's all kinds of resources out there you can use. Google it if nothing else. So I've got 2 neat little plants to show you right here. So we got this right here. Is called Lycopodium, sometimes called a princess pine, but its real name is Lycopodium. The neat thing about Lycopodium is it grows where there's aluminum in the soil, or higher amounts of aluminum in the soil. So this is kind of a neat little thing. Where to go? Oh, right there. All right. Now another plant that's right here. It's damaged a bit, but that is some poison ivy. We did a video about poison ivy a few weeks ago, so you can look back at that. So poison ivy is the one real poisonous plant in the area that will give you a bad rash just by touching it. So it's a good idea to know how to identify poison ivy. For our other two plants, the first one I've got is called horsetail fern. They're neat little ferns that they grow up really quick in the spring. They're one of the first things to grow up. And I just think they're really cool looking, so that's the horsetail fern. We've got a neat little plant right here called bleeding heart. This is not a native plant. This is a ornamental plant that we planted here, but it's just kind of cool. So one more plant. Special for us. So, and this is one of our first budding plants out here every year. This is purple lilac. We don't have the flowers yet, but in a few weeks we will have nice, beautiful purple flowers growing on this shrubbery. And this is good for, we're from Rochester here, so we are the lilac city, so I like having some lilacs. In a little bit we're going to show planting a lilac. So that is requirement number 3. All right, so requirement number 4 is to develop a plant to care for and then plant at least one plant or tree, either indoors or outdoors. Tell how this plant or tree helps the environment in which it is planted and what the plant or tree will be used for. All right, so today we are going to plant a new purple lilac. So we already have our hole dug and we have our purple lilac ready. So the first thing you're going to do is put the tree into the hole. It helps to have someone hold that straight. And then you're going to take that shovel and you're going to fill in around that to help keep that tree nice and steady. Careful of the tree. Alright, so how does planting trees help the environment?
It's giving some more oxygen for animals to survive and breathe. It's also helping stop erosion. It gives a home for some animals.
Excellent. The requirement number 5 is to make a list of items in your house that are made from wood. So let's take a look at our house real quick and see what items we have that are made out of wood.
There's islands and counters. The frame of the house is made out of wood. Racks, things that hold stuff. Windowsills. Cabinets, furniture over there. My sister's bed, which is upstairs. The rail, doors.
All right. So a very large part of our homes all require wood in their construction. So wood is very important for that. So requirement number 6 is to explain how the growth rings of a tree trunk tell its life story. So what's up with the growth rings of a tree?
Each ring tells that, well, it gives it 1 year of age.
And what does it mean if your tree rings are really big?
That it grew a lot that year.
And what if the tree rings are really tight and small?
It didn't grow a lot that year.
Okay. And why a tree might grow a lot versus a little might depend upon the weather. If it has plenty of water and sunlight, it's going to grow a lot. If it doesn't have a lot of water and sunlight, it's not going to grow very fast. So the other parts of requirement number 6 is to describe the different types of tree bark and what they do for the tree. So the different types of tree bark are the inner bark and the outer bark. What does the inner bark do?
It sends the different molecules that it sends the water, the nutrients up and down through the tree.
Okay, and what does the outer bark do for the tree?
It protects the tree.
Good. So before we go, I want to look really quick at our tree rings. So I'm gonna look down at this. Maybe a little bit more light here. So we got this tree cookie, right? Don't eat it. Doesn't taste good. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and you can start to see those tree rings. And you can see these tree rings are really, really tightly packed. This tree grew very slowly. This is actually from an apple tree, and I know where this tree came from, and it was totally overshaded by larger trees, so it didn't get a lot of sunlight. But you can see these rings here, and each ring is a year. And these rings are so tightly packed, they're almost microscopic. Luckily, I have a microscope. So we're just gonna take a, see if I can. Why am I having a hard time finding it? There you are. There we go. So in that microscope view, you can see those rings and just how tightly packed they are. Ooh, there's a good view. Finally got focused right. So just in this one little view of the microscope view, you can see probably about 10 years worth of growth. All right, requirement number 7, the final requirement, is to visit a nature center, nursery, tree farm, or park and speak with someone knowledgeable about trees and plants that are native to your area. Explain how plants and trees are important to our ecosystem and how they improve the environment. So I'm not going to be able to do that with you because I can't take you to a nursery or tree farm or nature preserve. But if you want to go to one of those areas yourself, once we're able to, then go ahead and do that. But that last requirement is one of the optional ones. You don't have to do that one for this activity pin. So there is all of our requirements in a nutshell for Into the Woods. So all of you Weeblos and Arrow Lights out there, if you're interested in trees, and trees can be a really cool thing, go ahead and get out there and earn that activity pin.